Hey everybody, my name's Ryan Gromfin. I am building a Vans aircraft RV-10. It has been a dream of mine to build an airplane, especially the RV-10, for probably 15 years, probably since the RV-10 came out. I've always been interested in aviation. I flew remote control airplanes for pretty much my entire life. I remember when I was 12 or 13 years old, I got interested in remote control airplanes. My dad was a little too busy and wasn't quite able to help me with that. I mean, he's very handy. But what's actually hilarious is a friend of mine's father was super into RC airplanes, and so one of my good friends' dad would pick me up like every weekend and go fly airplanes with him, but not his son. And it became a whole little thing. There was a competitive nature there between my friend and his dad, but kind of always flying remote control airplanes, which I think leads to, we're boys. We like to build bigger. And as remote control airplanes got bigger, you start meeting other people. And we took all of our RC airplanes one day out to an abandoned airstrip a little bit outside of Bakersfield in California called Buttonwillow. If anyone's out in the California area, you might know it. It's a cool spot to fly remote control airplanes. But a real full-scale pilot friend was a captain on maybe 737s or something. He flew his RV-4 out and landed on the same strip that we were flying remote control airplanes on. It took me for a ride, and it was one of those like straight up, high performance takeoffs. And I was like, oh my God, what is this airplane? He's like, it's an RV-4. I built it. I'm like, wait. You can build airplanes? I had no idea. I'm like 19 years old at the time. So I got onto Van's website and started just kind of like every kid, like every year, like I'm going to build it. And then when the 10 came out, I was like, that's the one I'm going to build, because family, I have a son. And so as much as I'd love to build an 8 or a 14, we do want to use this airplane for a vacation. So really, it's the 10. So I've been staring at the 10 since probably 2005 on their website, like every year. I got my pilot's license probably about 2005, 2006, and then just wasn't really able to keep flying, work, travel, family, all of that. And then about 2-3 years ago, I started flying more regularly here. I'm a partner in a 182, and I was like, all right, it's time. So that's how we ended up here. Started about 2 years ago. It was probably summer of 21. Was when I finally decided, and it was between the Sling TSI and the RV-10, and I was doing research on both. There weren't many TSIs at the time, so I was reaching out to people with 10s, and I found a guy here in Austin who was building a 10, so I went to check out his build, and like a week later, he called me. He's like, so if you haven't made a decision yet, I might be able to make this easier for you. We're moving out of town. We're not taking the 10 with us. He made me an offer I couldn't refuse, literally, for the empennage. Wings were started, and all of his tools. So it happened faster than I thought. My wife wasn't fully prepared for the size. Like normally when you receive a kit, it's like, oh, it's a kit, that's cool. But it comes in a box and you kind of gets bigger over time, like a puppy or a kid. This was like, here's your rudder, here's your horizontal stabilizer, here's your tail kit, here's your wings. Wings were already framed up on a cradle, but when it all showed up, like we both were freaking out. Like the garage wasn't ready. It was big. It took up a lot of space. And so there was about a month of like, what am I really doing here? And then you kind of settle in and get going. But that's how I got started. And then I'm in no hurry here. I fly a 182 right now. I love it. And I'm building time. I'm getting management rating. So with work and with coaching my kids' baseball team and with a family, I own my own business. It's like I build when I can build. I have no timeline. Everyone's like, when are you going to be done? Sometime between 3 years and whenever. I literally have no timeline. I think I'm about 4 years away, but so I have a favorite tool. We were preparing. I brought it right here. It's this little guy. You can get a better shot of it later, but I think it's from Cleveland, and it fits into your like little hex head. I have like a little palm hex head driver that spins really slow, and it's for deburring. So this saves me from the spinny thing on every hole. So this is my favorite tool. I have a couple of least favorite tools. This is my least favorite tool. The offset back riveter. I don't know what you would call it, but I absolutely hate this thing. Yes, it is necessary. You will need it a lot. Using this alone is horrible. I also hate driving universal head rivets. So We can show you a picture of them, but I got some of these little things that help with that. But this, I have learned, as I've expressed my hatred for this, I've learned that when you're using two hands, if you have someone helping you and you can stop it from rotating, it's much easier. Or if you wrap it with duct tape, if you're alone, that seems to work well too. But I have made more mistakes with this than anything else. My second least favorite tool is micro stops. Again, you need them. They are required, but I absolutely hate them. I feel like I can never get it set right. I feel like even though it's supposed to stop when it's supposed to stop, it has a lot to do with how much pressure. Maybe I'm using them wrong, but these two have caused me more heartache and pain than any other tool that I've used. So I've had a lot of panic moments during the build. None of them have been irreplaceable. They've been more of like, you think you're doing everything right, and then all of a sudden you flip a page and it's like, oh, either I did something wrong. Most of the time you realize you did it right. You might have just done something like out of order and it doesn't feel right when you flip a page, but then you go 5-6 more pages, you can work yourself out. There was one moment in the aileron build, and I don't know what I was thinking. I think it's because I didn't build from day one because I got some of the stuff already built, but we were doing the trailing edge. I will still stand by the wording in the instructions was terrible, but it was still something I should have known. But basically, I countersunk through the aileron skin into the wedge, where you're supposed to countersink the wedge and dimple the skin. We all know that. Again, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did that. I read it like 20 times. I'm like, this doesn't seem right, but this is what it says to do, and I did it. And then when you go to put the rivets in, you realize like there's just not enough skin to bite. So I had to drill out about 300 little rivets, which I was so not looking forward to, but I got into a rhythm and I got all the rivets drilled out in like an hour and a half. So I was shocked about that. And then I just ordered new skins from Vans. It was $200 mistake. Fixed it all, no big deal. But that was kind of the moment where I was laying in bed and thinking about what I did and knew I did something wrong. On the other side of that, the kind of milestone moments were definitely finishing the fuel tanks, like leak testing it. When I did the first fuel tank, first of all, everyone talks about how terrible the fuel tanks are. They're not that bad. Like, they're just not that bad. Go slow, take your time. Greg put out an amazing video, which I think had I not seen that video, the fuel tanks would have been terrible. But having seen Greg's video from Vans on fuel tanks made it a lot easier. But when you finish your fuel tank and you test it and there's no leaks, you're like, that may have been the hardest part of the build. So kind of getting through that was kind of a moment where you're like, all right, like I can do this. But yeah, I think other than that, you just kind of get that accomplishment. Like when I got everything out of here, when I got the wings and everything out of my garage, like they're done. Like they're done. Wires are run, fiberglass is on, the zip tips are installed, they're tested, they're working. So literally, like when we're ready, it's going to be take the wings to the airport, take the fuselage to the airport, bolt them on, connect the harness, we're good to go. So those moments feel good. First of all, I think the advice that everyone says is you can do this. I mean, if you were even remotely inclined and interested in this, you can do it. I had no experience building an airplane before this, and now I feel like no problem at all. We can build these. Yeah, you got to learn how to rivet. You got to learn how to do some stuff. You got to pay attention to some tolerances and some tools and specs and how to use them. But especially now with YouTube, like there's so much help out there. So if you even think you can do this, you can do it. Maybe the advice I would give is, why wouldn't you? Like, I can't imagine flying a certified airplane that's even close to the performance of this. Not only the cost, the amount of work you have to do to maintain them, the difficulty in maintaining them, of having to go to an AMP for everything. I mean, even like the 182 that we're partners in, we had a fuel tank bladder issue. You know, it took 2 months to get the part. It took 2 months for our AMP to do it, and it was like $9,000. That could have been, I could have taken the fuel tank off of the 10, built a new fuel tank in my garage in spare time and put it back on the airplane for $1,000 maybe, and no labor to pay anyone else. So I just can't even imagine, like, competitive to this would be a Cirrus of some sort. Like, even if you bought a Cirrus for $400,000 or $500,000, which would be probably 10 to 15 years old with aging avionics and an engine that's almost timed out, in then the amount that it costs to maintain it for similar, maybe less performance than this, I don't even know why anyone would ever fly certified when you compare the two. So that's the main reason I'm building. I love the build process, but I'm building because I want to fix my own plane. I want to wrench on my own plane. I'm going to build my engine through build school. I want to know how every bolt on this airplane was put in, how to fix it, and I'm going to be the one fixing it. So we were just talking about this off camera. The options on the 10 are immense, and it's probably the most overwhelming part of the build besides paying for it. So in many ways, I sort of like the idea of like, follow the instructions. This is your build. This is where your antennas go. This is your avionics. With a 10, you don't get that. I think with some of the other builds you might. With a 10, it's a lot of choices. And so I've kind of worked through, I think, most of them at this point. I have decided I'm going Dynon. I'm very happy with that choice. I know there's going to be two schools of that, but so far I've been really happy with the choice to go Dynon. You don't even have to make that decision as early in the build as I am. I just kind of made that decision early because that makes it easier for me. I can run my pitot tube, like my pitot tube is actually installed. The stuff is run for it. Whereas if you're going to do your pitot later, yeah, you can do it later. But I put all my brackets for my servos in the wing now. Like I've just made that decision. So that eliminates a lot of choices later. As far as engine, it's pretty much a 540. I'm 99% sure I'm going to go with bare cold air induction, which then changes. You have to do some mods to the engine mount. You have to do some mods to the engine mount. You have to do some mods to your cowl. So you're going with an aftermarket cowl. When you change the aftermarket cowl, you have to change some stuff on. You just need to go to a bigger oil cooler, and then you have to go to a bigger spinner. So it's kind of like every decision leads to another, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to go down that road there. And then interior, I haven't quite decided yet. That's where we're going to go to Oshkosh. I want to actually take a look at different interiors, different seat options, different control stick options. But I think the big decisions are really the engine. Oh, and as we're talking about engine, I'm going to go fully electronic. There's no question about that. Nobody can convince me any differently. It is 2003, it is not 1954. I understand magnetos work. I understand carburetors work, but it is 2000. I said 2003. It's 2023. It will be electronic ignition, electronic injection. I just haven't decided between System 32 and SDS yet. So today, there's very few parts that you absolutely need help on. Even putting the bottom skins on your wings, everyone convinced me you can't do it alone. I did every single rivet of the bottom skin on the wings alone, so you can. But this was the first spot where I needed extended help. We did the backside, so we did the bottom few skins to all of the spars and ribs and bolt and everything. And you just can't, like, you cannot reach around and do it. So you need one person on that side, one person on this side. And I've been able to recruit my neighbors to help a little bit, my wife to help a little bit. We've worked our way up, but today kind of Melissa Fossum came over and we went from here to the top and finally finished it. We can get some footage of the other side. But yeah, now I'm back to doing some firewall work and stuff that I can do alone. Thanks for coming over. Thank you so much for the help. Appreciate it.